Hi, E.T. here. You already know because we've talked about it, the Body Snatchers plot. But what about the theme? In other words, what did the plot and characterization of the film really mean? It's never stated outright, but there's a message. What is it? This was hotly debated after the release of the film in 1956. Keep in mind, this is during the waning years of the Red Scare panic that came after World War II, when the House Un-American Activities Committee, led by Representative Nixon, was looking into communists in government, and the same thing happening through Senator Joe McCarthy's committee. And the names of people like Alger Hiss were known by everybody. He would go to jail for espionage. And Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were big news for having handed over secrets regarding the A-bomb to Stalin. Many people were concerned about communist infiltration of federal government agencies, including the United States Army. These kinds of things were headline news every day since Winston Churchill delivered his Iron Curtain speech, and I think that was early 1946. Many people assumed that Walter Wanger, the producer and the director of the film, Don Siegel, turned Jack Finney's novel into a metaphor of the communist issue. But not everybody agreed on what the metaphor intended. Now, young E.T. at the time assumed, and I came from a more conservative family, assumed that the pod people represented homegrown domestic communists, or at least communist sympathizers. E.T.'s pals, many of them from more liberal families, saw the film the other way. The pod creatures represented thoughtless, mid-American super-conformists who would robotically march in lockstep with Nixon and McCarthy. Well, one thing is clear. Neither the makers of the film, Wanger or Siegel, nor the writer Jack Finney, intended anything more than to create a scary story. Walter Murch supervised the film for Allied Artists, and he said recently, and I'm quoting him, "When we made the film, we had no political intentions at all. We just wanted to scare people." But readers of Finney's story and those who attended the film or saw it on TV did see the book and the movie as metaphors. The pod people were, generally speaking, American communists, at least according to Republican conservatives. No, they were McCarthyites, those middle Americans marching in lockstep to McCarthy and later Nixon, at least according to liberal Democrats. Well, those who saw the pods as liberal communist sympathizers had reason for doing so. Television, since 1945, had expanded into almost, I think, check me out on this, 1 million homes by 1956. And the programming then featured things like I Led 3 Lives. That was based on a best-selling book. It featured true stories of an advertising executive named Herb Philbrick. He infiltrated communist cells, many of them operating out of suburban homes, just like the ones we had next door. I should add here a little trivia footnote. Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek fame wrote several of those episodes on I Led 3 Lives. Well, books and other movies, too, featured a similar theme. There was, for instance, My Son John. It was a popular episode on radio, too. I think it was Quiet Please. Another movie, Big Jim McLean. These movies featured people we know, living like people we know next door, talking and behaving normally among the general public, but in private, plotting to overthrow the Republic of the United States of America. So it's understandable that we could see a movie like The Body Snatchers and assume what is really being said is that we have people who are behaving mindlessly. They are pro-communist or sympathizers, and the pod people represent them. But on the other hand, it's almost equally understandable that, as liberals saw it in the 50s, Dr. Bennell and his girlfriend Becky were nonconformist outliers. Each was divorced, by the way, during a time when that was severely frowned upon. Now, these two are trying to remain alert among brain-dead, uber-accommodating, alien Nazi types, demanding either total compliance or death. What do you think? Were those people, the pod people, in the movie, in the book, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, were they communist, or their fifth column? Or were they pro-McCarthy right-wing types, sleep marching in lockstep to some authoritarian dirge? Type in your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe if you would. Share the videos too on social media. Tap the thumb up icon. Thank you.